Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And tomorrow night, Graham Potter's Chelsea head to Austria to take on RB Salzburg in the Champions League with a win guaranteeing the Blues qualification for the last 16. So we'll be looking to put behind us Saturday's disappointing draw against Manchester United and looking ahead to qualifying for the knockout stage of the Champions League once again. And you know, Salzburg is going to be a tricky game. It was actually Graham Potter's first game in charge. We do 1-1 at the Bridge. They've got some half-decent players, Benjamin Sesko, Noah Okafor. They can cause us problems. So it's not going to be an easy night. You'd expect a rotated side from Pottery. Indicated as much, saying that, you know, the guys that didn't feature so much against Manchester United are more than likely going to feature against Salzburg. So it can give you an indication of to kind of who may or may not be starting. But it's going to be a tricky test. There's lots to get into. Delighted to be joined by Dharmesh. Thank you for joining, mate. As always, pleasure to have you on board. Before we get into the game itself, you know, what have you kind of made of Graham Potter's start? Because there's been a lot of noise on Twitter, people saying that, you know, he should be doing better or the job's too big for him. I mean, what have you made of his start so far? Because, you know, 7 games, 5 wins, 2 draws. We've had key players injured in the likes of Reece James has been out for the last 3 games. No Kante. Koulibaly has been missing. Fofana's been missing and whatnot. What have you made of his start?
Yeah, firstly, Charlie, thank you so much for getting me back on the channel and stuff. It's always great to come on and stuff, and big up everyone watching as well, live, and people watching after and stuff. Just before I get started on that, just a massive happy Diwali to everyone that's watching as well, and people watching back as well. Hope you have hope you've had a good Diwali. But yeah, looking into Graham Potter, like some of the stuff I've seen on Twitter, it's just ridiculous. Like I keep bringing up that quote from Thomas Tuchel saying we have the same players, and back then, everyone was sort of like against Tuchel in a way. They were sort of saying, "Oh, what's he on about? What's he on about? He can only play 1 system, 2 systems. That's it." But we have to realize as well, it's the same players that are there, and Graham Potter's playing a similar system to what Tuchel has. There's little tweaks of phases of play. Like I feel like we're playing more down the middle than the flanks, obviously due to Reece James's injury and stuff. But I definitely feel like the criticism he's getting is unfair, considering he's not even managed 10 games for us. So it's a joke, to be honest, that he's getting this much criticism. It's fine to look at certain bits of what he's done during games, especially United. I think leaving on Aubameyang and Sterling for about 80 minutes was a poor decision, but this guy's literally just come to the club and he's got so many players that are sort of not his, and it's going to take him time. It's going to be a longer process for us to try and figure out our best starting 11. Like you could argue that even with Tuchel, like he fully didn't know his best starting 11, even with those injuries and stuff. So yeah, that's what I make of it all. It sounds a bit passionate just because like I want to get off my chest about the amount of like rubbish I've seen sort of Chelsea fans post and stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm the same. Look, you know, 7-8 games is you can't judge a manager after 7 or 8 games. You know, like the fact of the matter is that this is going to take a long time to sort of fix, to build up. We've not been playing good football for quite a long time now. This predates Potter's arrival. You know, realistically, we haven't played good football in the Premier League for a good 6, 7, 8 months. We really haven't. It's been a real struggle. You know, it's the same group of players. Yes, we've added quality this summer, so yeah, there's a few different faces in there, but it's very much largely the same squad, same group of players. And it's the same issues that aren't going to be fixed overnight, and it's going to take time. You don't just come in and suddenly, you know, everything's fine and all the problems are fixed. Like it's not just down to the manager. Like Tuchel wasn't really the problem at Chelsea. You know, yes, all right, things towards the end were problematic, but you know, it wasn't down to him, just solely him, why things weren't going well. It's the same with Potter. You know, I think he's actually done really well, all things considered. Look, all right, perhaps we haven't had the toughest games, but Crystal Palace is a difficult place to go to, as is Villa. Brentford's a hard place to go to. All right, yes, we didn't win that, and perhaps we should have played better, and against United, we were poor. But I think, you know, yes, perhaps he's made some certain mistakes in certain team selections and whatnot, but at least, you know, for me, he's had the awareness and the kind of the balls to actually, you know, when he can see that something's wrong, he changes it. You know, that change it after 35 minutes against United at the weekend, makes 2 subs at half-time against Villa. You know, he's not afraid to change the game or to make changes when he can see that things aren't right. And that's what I like about him, the way that he's used the bench, the way that he uses his substitutes. Yes, okay, you could argue that for me, personally, he perhaps should have given more minutes to certain players like Pulisic, like Broja, perhaps should have started more games in terms of rather than picking players on their on their names, on their reputations. Maybe Sterling shouldn't have started as many games as he had. Maybe Aubameyang shouldn't have started or whatever. But you can't just. It's so easy to say, oh, you should be picking him and him. But then, like, if you do that and you lose, the first thing you get battered with is, oh, why didn't you pick Sterling? Why didn't you pick Aubameyang? Why have you not picked your senior pros, your experienced players? So it's a hard balance to find. But I think he has done a good job so far. And I see people saying that oh, he's a bit boring or whatnot. Do you know what? Okay, maybe compared to Tuchel, compared to Mourinho and whatnot, yeah, maybe he's a little bit boring compared to them. He's not as sort of emotional as them and sort of outward emotionally. He perhaps doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve like those managers do. He expresses those emotions in a different way. But I think for Chelsea, we've been down this route of, world-class managers, big names. And that's not really sustainable long term. Yes, those sort of managers, their style of football and the way they operate is not conducive to long term success. It's very much come in, win instantly, pretty much, and then that's why you see it break down after 2 or 3 years. It's the same with Mourinho. It's the same with Conte. And to an extent, it's the same with Thomas Tuchel as well. Couple seasons at Dortmund, few seasons at PSG, couple seasons at Chelsea or whatnot. These managers come in, they win instantly, but it's not conducive to long-term football. And whilst
100%,
and whilst it's great to have a world-class manager in the dugout, sometimes I think this could be good for us. Whether it works out or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think employing someone like Graham Potter, who's more of a approaches things in a more pragmatic way, perhaps on a more human level, is looking to build something. And we may not win things for a couple of seasons. And I was having this debate on a stream before I started this one, like people with Pice saying, he's saying at Chelsea, it shouldn't be acceptable to go 2 seasons without trophies. I understand that, and I would be frustrated if that were to happen. But at the same time, we've been so spoiled. A lot of us have grown up and only known trophies, but and winning and winning as Chelsea's DNA. Winning's only really been in Chelsea's DNA since Roman came in. All right, beforehand we picked up a few trophies here and there, but we weren't serial winners at all. So I think for me, maybe we have to slightly readjust our expectations, and that's a hard thing to do. But at the end of the day, I think Potter, given the time, given the resources, given the players, I think he can do something. Whether it's going to work out or not, I'm not really sure. But what's kind of impressed you the most since he's come in? Because we've looked a lot better. I mean, we've looked better going forward. It's by no means, it's by no means a finished work at the top end of the pitch, but things have looked slightly better. It looks like we've got more options in the final third, more people in and around the box. I mean, what's kind of impressed you most since he's come in? Because he's not made massive changes, but he's made a few subtle changes here and there.
Do you know what? I think one of the main things is I think it's the fact that we start to keep clean sheets now, because we saw at the end of Tuchel's reign that we were just conceding goals to fun, even to the back end of last season. Not many people noticed how many goals we actually did concede. Bearing in mind, Mendy was in poor form most of 2022, and the fact that we had obviously James injured, Chilwell out with long-term injury and stuff. And yeah, I think mostly the defense. I can see phases of our attack getting better and stuff, but I keep going back to the point. It's the same players that you can't expect. You can't expect any creativity from the same bunch of players when they haven't been doing it since, let's be real, like Frank Lampard. Most of these players have been originated from. So, I agree to some extent that our attacking play has gone better. We've obviously scored a bunch showed against AC Milan. We scored against Wolves as well, 3 against Wolves. But we kind of got lucky with Villa. But at the same time, you need those kind of games to get through, to pull through. But I think overall, I've been most impressed with the defensive ones. Even though Kepa's come to our rescue past couple of games, I think we definitely look more tighter at the back and stuff, and our attacking play does look better. But until we assign an attacking mid or a creative player, nothing, in my opinion, is going to change with the attack.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there are good players there, and I was saying something today that you look back to the successful Chelsea teams you've had, there's been kind of I don't want to say quote unquote proper midfield players. Like when we won titles, looking back, Makaleli, Essien, Lampard, Ballack, Matic, Fabregas, etc. More recent times, we've never really replaced Nemanja Matic, and we've certainly never replaced Cesc Fabregas. Now, I'm not saying that you put put proper prime Cesc Fabregas in that midfield and suddenly we score loads of goals. But what I am saying is we're certainly creating more chances, and more chances in theory equals more goals. So I'm not saying, it's solely down to the fact we haven't really got any creative spark in midfield. That certainly helps. And I think, yes, okay, the guys at the top end of the pitch aren't the most clinical finishers. They're not kind of like, they're not 1 in 2 forwards or whatever. They're maybe like 1 in 3, perhaps 1 in 4 at a worst case scenario. But I think with better creativity, with more chances being fed to the forward line, then we obviously are going to score more goals. So I think the problem's twofold. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how good the likes of Kovacic, Jorginho, Ruben, Kante are, etc. They're all very good midfield players in their own right. The fact of the matter is that none of them score enough goals and none of them really contribute that many assists. I love Kovacic. I think he's a top player. But my one criticism would be his output is not good enough. He doesn't score many goals and he hardly assists any goals. And I know you can say, all right, you're only as good as the guy on the end of your pass or the end of your cross. I get that. But he's not really, for me, his numbers aren't good enough for someone of his quality. And it's as simple as that. Do you think what do you put down the lack of goal scoring down to? I know you referenced games that we have scored a few goals in. Milan, 5 goals across the 2 games, 3 against Wolves, 2 against Villa and whatnot. But goals have been hard to come by, really, if we're being honest. I mean, what do you put it down to, mate?
Do you know what it is? I think other teams looking at us, like their analysis sort of team, they probably look at our attackers and just laugh, to be honest. They're just like, oh, look, Pulisic is playing, Mount is playing, Havertz is playing. Look, these are the same players that have been there since Frank Lampard. So what? We're talking 3 or 4 years now. Like, they will have records of phases of play between each of them, and they'll know exactly how to stop them, really. And they know how reliant we are on our wing backs with James and Chilwell. Like, it's pretty evident of how we sort of missed them and how we found that creativity from our flanks, because nothing, like you said, nothing comes from our middle in terms of Jorginho, Kovacic, Ruben and Kante through that. So I think the lack of goals is just down to other teams knowing our predictability, to be honest. We're just so predictable. Like, when watching us, I never think, oh, look, Kovacic is going to drive to this space and try and cross it or try and thread a ball through. He's just going to pass it sideways to Chilwell and hope for the best, really. So I think, it's just annoying, to be honest, that we don't have that creative player, because someone like, as an example, James Maddison, I reckon if he comes slot straight into our team, I guarantee you will start creating more chances. Don't know about the finishing, like that's obviously down to the attackers we have, but put James Maddison in our team, like I wouldn't say most of our problems are fixed, but I'd say 30 to 40% of our problems in attack would be solved for just having that creative player in that team.
It's just finding the right balance, isn't it?
Exactly, because that's the problem.
Like
as well.
playing 3-4-3 as we predominantly do. Right, sometimes we go to the 4 or whatever. Sometimes it's 3-5-2. Whatever you want to call it. Maddison, for me, top player, love him. He's more of a 10, really. Yeah. All right. Yeah, he could play as a number 8, but the systems we play, we don't really play a 10. I almost feel that, like, in football, the number 10 is almost, it's not dying out, but modern day football doesn't really seem to cater for an old school number 10. Yeah. Like it would have done a few years ago. Now it's very much, you've got to be a versatile player that can kind of play across the front line. I mean, unless you're like someone like an Erling Haaland or a Lewandowski or a Kane or whatever, where you're out and out forward and you operate at a top level. But most players now, if you're playing in the front line, you've got to be pretty versatile. So it's just fun about finding that balance. And I think, the likes of Nkunku coming in next season, that could make a difference. But it's got to come a point where, we spent so much money on the attack. We can't just keep throwing money at the attack and hoping that these new players that come in are going to do what the previous ones couldn't. There has to come a point where you've got to work with what you've got and try and get more out of what you've got. And I think someone like Potter could be a sort of a manager that can extract the maximum amount of players, whereas perhaps predecessors like Tuchel kind of struggled a little bit to extract the absolute maximum, certainly towards the end. Yes, he got the maximum out of them when he first came in, that Champions League run and whatnot, but you could see that kind of papered over a lot of cracks and made people think that we were a lot better than we actually were. But it's just finding that balance. It's just getting the right combination of players. They're not all bad players, but you look at the teams we're challenging against, and our forward options don't stack up to what we're trying to be in terms of Man City, in terms of Liverpool. I know Liverpool obviously struggling a bit this season, but the forward options just don't stack up.
You could argue Arsenal as well, to be honest, the way we are right now.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah, well, this is it. So I mean, it's just fine. It's just finding that balance, but it is tricky. I mean, it's not helped that obviously key players missing. I mean, there's no surprise for me that the 3 games that have just gone, obviously the last 3 we've had the win against Villa and the 2 draws against Brentford and United, probably 3 of our worst performances under Potter, and they all coincide with no Reece James. How concerned are you with how we're playing without Reece James? And are you concerned that we're so reliant on one player in terms of attacking output? Because you take him out the side and it's very reliant on the left wing back then, whoever that is, whether it's Chilwell or Cucurella, has to provide a lot of attacking impetus. And we just don't seem to be getting that. For me, there's no surprise that the performances have trailed off since Reece James has been injured.
Yeah, it's just the fact that like teams have sort of found us out now. They know how to play against us, to be honest. They know how to stop our attacking play, with James and Chilwell especially, / Cucurella as well. But yeah, we miss Reece James so much. Like I was so gutted that we lost him. Like it's like even as soon as the injury sort of happened, I kind of knew that he was going to be out for a while. Just the way he landed and stuff, the impact on the ground and stuff like that. But yeah, we desperately need him back. Like, but I blame our old regime and I blame our board for letting this happen in a way, because we've overplayed the guy for almost a year now, and every time he comes back, we're rushing his injuries, which is why it's causing him to get more injured as well. Like, I think it was last season. Was it against Burnley? I think he scored 2, and then he got injured
did away
straight after, didn't he?
Yeah, we rushed him back.
We rushed him back for like he was amazing that game, but it shouldn't have to be the case where we rush him back. We should have sufficient wing back that could actually fill in for him. Like, I love Aspie and stuff. He's a legend in my eyes at Chelsea, but for now in 2022, not good enough for Chelsea. I wanted someone ideally like Kyle Walker-Peters. I think he would have been ideal for this situation because he can play right back, he can play right wing back as well. Very versatile player as well, and I think he'd fit us perfectly as well. And I don't think he'd mind sitting on the bench as well.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
in a few games and coming into games as well. So yeah,
I think it's a bit of a myth that someone that's coming in as a backup right wing back or as another squad option in that area is not going to play very much. Reece James is the last couple of seasons as a go by picks up injuries. You know, we're playing a lot of games. He's not going to play every game. He needs to be rotated at certain points. So anyone coming in, whether that's a Dumfries, whether that's a Walker-Peters, or whoever it is, would get plenty of games. And I think that's the one area in the squad, along with the midfield, obviously, that it was a mistake not to invest in that in the summer potentially. I mean, I'm sure we can maybe look at addressing it in January and see what we can do. But yeah, it's a problem for me that was very avoidable. It was an obvious area that needed strengthening, whether that was Tuchel's fault for saying we don't need anyone, whether that was the board prioritizing other areas. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is that, you know, you can't rely on Reece James to be fit for a season. You can't expect him to play every single game. So there's got to be some sort of other option there that's not putting Ruben Loftus-Cheek at right wing back for as well as he can do for a run of games. You know, it was bad. And I do agree it's not sustainable. I do agree with this. I don't think we should have re-signed Azpilicueta on a 2-year contract. I really feel we should have probably let him go. As much as I love him and as much as he's actually done okay the last few games that he's played, that should not have been offered as an option. But
sorry, just one other thing as well. Like, in my sort of opinion, I think challenging for positions as well. I think we shouldn't get too sort of stuck up in the players that play in the position. Like, say if like a Dumfries or a Hakimi, like those are the two that come to mind, like did come to Chelsea and they're performing better than Reece James. Like, why not just stick them in the team then? Why not have Reece as a backup? Have him as like a backup, like wing back. No one's sort of secure in their position. If you get what I'm saying, like we shouldn't really settle for anything less. If the player's performing in that position, you play him until obviously you don't want to play him until he's injured, but you sort of play that person without any sort of emotional attachment to the player, because at the end of the day, it's about Chelsea. It's not about individual players. Like, fair enough, they're Cobham boys and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, I personally care about Chelsea and where we sort of stand as a team and how we progress. So that's the way I see things in terms of challenging like
Yeah,
for the positions and stuff.
I
So
think it's really important that you have two quality players in each position. Like
exactly, yeah.
you go back to when Mourinho first came in and those first Premier League titles we won, two
Oh,
quality
man,
players in
yeah,
every single position. And that's got to be the standard because I think at times at Chelsea recently, there's been certain players where there's not really been that good alternative backups, and regardless of how certain players are playing, they know that they're going to be starting every week. That breeds complacency. It's not good. It doesn't push you on
exactly.
to perform any better. Whereas if you've got quality depth in each position, then if you don't play well, suddenly it's like, shit, this guy's going to take my place. I think we've got it on the left hand side, so we certainly need to get it on that right hand side. But yeah, it is problematic when Reece James.
I'll just give an example as well. Like with Chalobah and Christensen, this is interesting because when Christensen was with us, obviously he was playing more of the games than Chalobah was.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of motivated Chalobah to be like, the gaffer's not picking me, so I've got to up my game. And look at him now; he's arguably been the best player under Graham Potter right now.
Yeah.
Chalobah,
I mean, bar
in that right side of that position.
Maybe Silva. He definitely has been, and I think competition increases your level of performance. It pushes you up because if you don't play well, you're going to find yourself on the bench and that's what you've got to do. The whole point of having a squad is using it and being able to rotate and compete across multiple fronts. You can't play the same 11 every week, so you've got to have that depth. And hopefully, we have got good depth, but there's certain areas of the squad that it is lacking. But let's kind of shift the focus back to the Champions League. It was a difficult start. 1 point from the first two games. The 2 wins against Milan really helped us out, and obviously, as I said at the top of the show, a win away at Salzburg tomorrow night qualifies us for the last 16. It's kind of been quite some turnaround given the start. I have to say, after the first 2 games, I was a little bit worried that we may end up dropping into the Europa League, but thankfully that's thankfully that's kind of been put to bed with the 2 good performances against Milan. What have you made of the campaign so far in the group? Obviously, tricky start. We don't need to go back on that. But the 2 games against Milan, how did you see those ones briefly? Because Milan, decent side. Having said that, they are ravaged by injury. And then obviously the Tomori red card and the San Siro really helped us out as well. And I think those 2 games against Milan ended up being way easier than we ever expected them to be. But you still got to go there and you still got to get the job done. So I think from that perspective, it was quite impressive.
Yeah, I think overall in the group, I think we've done well considering the position that we were in, like you said, in the first 2 games and stuff. But I think AC Milan, I think we all got sort of frightened of them just because they obviously won the league last season. They obviously had Giroud, Tomori. We were worried about Rafael Leao against Reece James and potentially Chalobah on that side. We're worried about sort of the threat that he posed against us. So in that sense, it wasn't a walk in the park for us. But it's kind of annoying because the situation we find ourselves in now, having to win tomorrow, I think it's sort of hindered us in the league in a way because we're having to put obviously put everything into league and Champions League, but we should have sort of had the group wrapped up by now in a way where we can sort of rotate as many players as we can, given the quality of our squad, the quality of our manager as well. So I kind of it's kind of annoying that we haven't got it wrapped up. And like tomorrow's a must win game for us. In a way. So
we don't. For me, we have to win this game tomorrow because you don't want to take any chances going into the last game. I know we're at home to Zagreb, and obviously Zagreb beat us in the corresponding fixture, but you don't want to leave anything to chance going into the last game of the group, having not qualified. You just don't want to have that pressure, and the fact that the Zagreb game is like 2 or 3 days. I think 3 days before we play Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. Yeah, like you want to be in a position where you can literally play
a C team,
like you can literally play a completely rotated side so that you're fresh for Arsenal at the weekend. That's the position you want to be in. You want to get the job done now. He's not going to go full strength tomorrow in terms of what we might deem to be the best lineup, but there'll be some rotation there. But it's going to be a side that's definitely strong enough to win, and I think we have to win this game. But Salzburg is a difficult place to go. I mean, what did you make of them in the first leg? Obviously, it was Potter's first game in charge, so it was difficult to expect perhaps too much. We probably should have won that game. But what did you make of them as an outfit?
I think I did think they were all that, to be honest, against us because I was sort of more focusing on like the setup of Graham Potter's first game. So it kind of shifted my focus more obviously onto Chelsea and how we line up and stuff tactically and on and off the ball and stuff. But from what I remember, I think their striker, is it Seshko?
Sesko's class. He's a good player.
Like he scored a wicked goal as well. I can't remember who he was against, but he scored a really good goal, and that just sort of worries me with the gaps that we sort of leave on the counter and stuff, because he is quite quick for a big lad as well. So yeah, like Salzburg did well, to be fair, to obviously get a point at the bridge and stuff, and they've sort of kicked on, but even before and after that as well. They're I believe they're second right still in the group.
They're still second in the group. Yeah, they're ahead of Milan in the group. So yeah, they could qualify.
Exactly. Yeah, from their point of view, if they beat us, they obviously go ahead of us and they qualify. So yeah, they've surprised me a little bit in a way, but I expect a different sort of Chelsea tomorrow, given the fact that we've had some games, built a bit of a rhythm with Graham Potter and stuff. Because that first game, like, I don't really look at first games as like a
it's the
first game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's a tricky place to go. Obviously, I know we beat Milan, but Milan went there and could only get a point. Salzburg is going to be a hard place to go. It's going to be packed. There's going to be a sellout. It'll be a great atmosphere there. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be particularly high scoring necessarily. But the most important thing is that we get the job done and we put in a better performance than we did at the weekend. Because I think if we play like we did at the weekend in this game, we're asking for trouble. There's going to have to be an improvement in the level of performance for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a game we should be winning. 100%. We don't play Brighton until Saturday. It's the early kickoff. It's not exactly the furthest travel, so it shouldn't be too bad. Saturday, Tuesday is not an awful turnaround either. So yeah, we've definitely got more than enough to get the job done for sure. I mean, mate, let's get into a bit of a team now. Then I was going to bring the lineup up on screen. Let's do this. And guys, before we get into the lineup, make sure you smash the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel as well. Heading towards 2K subscribers now, not a million miles away. Progress has slowed a little bit, so let's keep subscribing to the channel. So if you're tuning in now, you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got it lined up as a 4-3-3. And also, guys in the chat, feel free to get involved as well with the team selection. Put your thoughts in as well. I've lined it up as a 4-3-3. I know we kind of finished with a sort of a diamond system against United. I've lined it up as a 4-3-3 purely based on the fact that Koulibaly still out with that knee problem that he picked up.
That's a bit worrying, don't you think?
It's a little bit worrying because it's not too serious, but it's kept him out of 2 games now. I mean, it might not be anything drastic, but you'd hope to be back for the weekend potentially. But
I hope so,
I mean, with Koulibaly missing, obviously with Fofana missing, we know he's missing. There's not really that many options to play a 3. So for that reason, I'm going with a 4. Obviously, that can change. That could easily go to a 3. It could go to, it could go whatever really. But I'm going to stick with this to start with. Kepa stays in goal. I thought he's been fantastic the last 3 games. I thought it was good again at the weekend. What have you made of? I presume you agree. And what have you made of Kepa's resurgence since Graham Potter's been here? I think he's obviously got a lot of confidence back in his game, and that's really showing.
Yeah, do you know what? He's done really well. Like, fair play to him and stuff. But I think the only thing I think with Kepa is if we want to think more long term in terms of going for the big trophies, going for the league, I still don't think Kepa's the guy for us in a way. But I think for where we are right now, I think he's doing really well under Potter right now. And like, I don't want to forget the amount of howlers he had about 2 to 3 years ago, because there's so many. And then I was just fuming with the amount of errors he made. And then like, that's why I haven't sort of forgotten what he's done in a way in terms of goalkeeping. But for now, like, he's doing superb right now, and obviously back him and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see another bozo moment from him. Because
he's probably at some point. It happens to everyone, but right now he's probably playing some of the best football of his career, and he doesn't warrant being switched out, and there's no need to switch him out, particularly in a game like this. Centre back pairing pretty much picks itself because there's no Fofana, there's no Koulibaly, so it's going to be Thiago Silva, and alongside him Trevor Chalobah, who's still, I don't believe, lost the Chelsea game in which he started, which is quite some record. It's obviously going to be these two. Don't need to say too much on Silva. How impressive have you been with Trevor Chalobah? Because there was talk of him potentially leaving in the summer. The club then stopped that. Fofana gets injured, and he's kind of that's the opportunity he's needed to get in the team. And his level of performance has been outstanding. You touched on it earlier. Arguably the best player since Potter's come in. Obviously, you could probably put Thiago Silva in that bracket as well, but Chalobah's game has gone on so much, and learning from the likes of Silva and Koulibaly is only going to elevate him and make him better. But how impressive has he been since getting into the team after Fofana's injuries? He hasn't put a foot wrong for me.
Again, Chelsea Twitter, man, these lot were saying to get rid of Chalobah, and it was deemed not good enough for Chelsea. Like, are you seeing the performances he's having now? This is why you don't sell. Like, this is why you don't sell. You don't loan Chalobah. Like, he's integral to our team. He had such a great breakthrough season last year, and I can't believe people wanted him like loaned or sold. But like, I can't speak highly enough of Trevor Chalobah right now. He's one of my favorite players right now. He's excelling so much. He's learning off the likes of Thiago Silva, Koulibaly as well, on and off the pitch as well. So I can't speak enough highly of him, to be honest. Like, he deserves to play every single game for us at the moment. Obviously, given that he doesn't get injured, obviously, but
yeah, I mean, isn't it
so he gets injured? But I still think he can maintain that position, and like, yeah, he's just carrying on his blistering form from like last season. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it probably isn't going to happen, but no one, for me, I don't understand why no one speaks about him when discussing England. Like, I'm not saying he'll necessarily start, but he's definitely in the squad. You know, he's better than the likes of, you know, your Connor Cody's, your Tyrone Mings. I know Mings and Gettis, I'm always better than Ben White for me. Like, I'm not saying he should start, but he should certainly be in the conversation. He should
100%.
He should be in the squad, but no one seems to speak about him when discussing England. I think it's a strange one, but at the end of the day, as long as he's performing well for Chelsea, that's the most important thing, and his level has been exceptional. Moving to right back, due to complete lack of options, it is literally only Azpilicueta. So
yeah,
we kind of stick him in there. I mean, ideally, we don't really want him playing as much football as he has been playing recently, but in fairness to him, he hasn't been terrible in the games that he's played recently. But yeah, obviously it's an area that perhaps we do need to, or not perhaps, that we certainly need to improve on. But yeah, Azpilicueta, for you, anything to add there?
Yeah, we're our hands are kind of tied with that, to be fair. It has to be Azpilicueta. I mean, like, it's kind of worrying that we're going to rely on him so much for the upcoming games, given the fixture congestion as well. But yeah, what can we do, eh?
No, well, yeah, we're in the situation we're in, so we can't really do anything about it.
We can't even put Chalobah right back, for example.
Wouldn't do that. Certainly wouldn't do that. Left hand side is interesting because obviously Cucurella started the last 3 games, but he's obviously been subbed at half time against Villa, subbed at around the hour mark against Brentford, and then subbed after 35 minutes against United. So he's kind of well rested. I mean, for me, the only reason I probably go with him tomorrow night, just because he's more rested, because Chilwell played the full 90 against United. And for me, at the moment, they're both not in the best of form, and there's not really that much difference between them. So I would probably go Cucurella. I mean, who would you pick out of the two of them?
Do you know what? It's tough. Like, left backs always can be, or left wing backs can be always going to be a debate throughout the whole season. But I don't know if you saw, Charlie, that he had tonsillitis or something, didn't he?
He lost about 5 kilos apparently in hospital.
And apparently it's had like an impact on his physical health.
Not surprised.
Yeah, so I probably have to agree with you, mate, with go Cucurella. Purely, because of the amount of minutes Chilwell's played as well, and we can't afford to overplay Chilwell as well, given the injury he had as well. So
yeah, he's still
Cucurella there.
He's still making his way back for sure. I mean, just in general, what have you made of kind of the Cucurella Chilwell thing this season? I mean, 2 top players, but not been in the best of form. But it's a good position to be in, to have those 2 options there. Where at the moment, arguably, yes, Chilwell in his best form is probably better than Cucurella, but it's great to have that strength and depth there, where week to week or game to game, it doesn't really matter too much which one of them plays.
I think one thing we've definitely learned is we can't play the both of them together, because it's an absolute.
It's not look good. Together. I mean, I was at Villa Park and watching that first half. That left hand side, it was terrible. As soon as Koulibaly came on, it was so much more solid. I'm not saying that Cucurella can't play left centre back.
You can't have Chilwell there.
He doesn't look comfortable playing left centre back at the moment in this Chelsea side. I think he's looked very shaky the times that he's played there. So I'm not saying he can't do it, but at the moment it's suggesting that he does not look comfortable there.
I think it's because him and Chilwell want to occupy the same positions, so it just leaves our left centre back area exposed, basically. So I think it'd work if we had like Cucurella at left centre back, then Sterling left wing back, for example, because Sterling would obviously play higher up, and Kukurea would also like sort of occupy that left centre back, left sort of wing back position in a way, or left back. So, but yeah, that's just the way I see it. Like you can't have both of them together. I think it's just they both want to do the same things pretty much. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, going into midfield, then I've gone with a 3-man midfield, so it's like it's 1-6-2-8 as it were. We really haven't got that many options here. So, as much as we might not like it, or people might not like it, it's going to be Jorginho in that 6. It just is. I mean, I feel it probably almost has to be. What have you made of Jorginho this season? Because he's obviously over his career, he's done. I think, in fairness, he's done very well for Chelsea. The performances aren't great. His limitations can be massively exposed. But then he does obviously pop up with some pretty good games now and then. I mean, what have you made of him this season? Because I don't think he's not been great. He certainly hasn't had the form that saw him come third in the Ballon d'Or, but he's still a very good footballer. But for me, just like his frailties are exposed a little too often for my liking at the moment.
Do you know what it is? I've always said about Jorginho, like I've obviously been speaking to friends about like Jorginho as well. Like he's the most overhated, but the most overrated player, I think, in our team in a way, if that makes sense, because a lot of people get onto his back for no reason at all. But at the same time, a lot of people praise him a bit too much as well. At that same time as well, it's kind of weird with Jorginho. Like I definitely think he's had a mixed start to the season. Like there's been games where he's been poor, phases where he's been poor, but he comes up with his clutch moments on like the penalties, for example, against Milan and obviously United, the two from what I remember. Did you take the penalty against Everton or?
He takes all the pens. He takes all the pens.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember if he started the first game or not against Everton, but yeah, I definitely think he's a good player for us. I don't know about renewing the contract or not. I'm not sure about that, but I definitely think a lot of people need to cut him slack, but at the same time, not overrate him in a way, because he's definitely better out there.
I just think, in certain instances, I think sometimes he's way too slow on the ball. Sometimes he's way too easy to get past. Every player's got their flaws, and he's been good for us, but he's one of them where
it's a love-hate sort of thing.
Like sometimes he puts in a great performance, and other times it's just terrible. I mean, we got here from a sad, not his biggest fan, but he's not doing bad. I think that's probably fair for the season. I agree with
that, to be fair.
He's had good performances. This is where it gets a little bit interesting now. The 2-8 positions, as it were. I'm inclined to think that I probably would start Ruben anyway. I'm inclined to think he will start because he's done the press conference today with Ruben. Not with Ruben, with Graham Potter. Yeah. Normally, the player that does the press conference usually starts. I would expect Ruben to start, but with 2-8s, we've got kind of an option to drop Mason Mount in here. You could play Conor Gallagher as well. You've got Ruben in there. You could play Kovacic. I mean, Kovacic, Potter saying after the game that, as we've known, he's been nursing a knee injury all season, and they've wanted to give him more rest, but they've not been able to because of the situation that's kind of occurred with injuries and whatnot. So I'm not sure Kovacic starts this game, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't think he does. I'd probably go these two number 8s. I'd probably go Loftus-Cheek, and I'd go Mason, and I'd go Mason Mount in there as well. I know Mount needs to be rested at some point, but he's still, despite his poor performances in the last couple of games or whatever, he's still one of our better players, and managers seem to always pick him. So he's obviously doing something right. So for me, I'd go Loftus-Cheek, and I'd go Mason Mount in there because I'm going to play Conor Gallagher somewhere else. I mean, what are your thoughts on these two number 8 positions?
Oh God, it's difficult. It's hard.
Would you agree on Loftus-Cheek as one of them?
Yes, definitely Loftus-Cheek. Yeah. He's been immense this season. I think he's been really good for us. Arguably second or third best player after Chalobah. I think under Tuchel, he's been really good. The other 8. It's hard because I'll be thinking about Chukwuemeka, but to throw him in a big game.
This is a big game. Like if it was Zagreb at home, absolutely.
100% you should play that.
Absolutely.
Charlie, you forgot one player, Zakaria.
Zakaria's never gonna play for Chelsea. I actually don't think he's ever going to play for Chelsea. Like it's a real strange one. And do you know what? I feel a bit sorry for the lad because I don't think he's done anything necessarily wrong.
I just want to see him play. Like, just want to see what. I just want
to see what he can do.
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
like I think it would be a real shame just for him to leave the club having not played anything. I mean, we've got no idea what he potentially could have offered us. I'm not saying it would have been like unbelievable what he could have offered us, but I still think he could have potentially been useful. So I would have just liked to have seen what he could do. I think it's a real shame to potentially not see him play for Chelsea. But yeah, he's not going to play in a game like this. But I mean, we agreed on Ruben.
Yeah.
What do you think on the other one? Would you Mount, Gallagher, Kovacic? What are your thoughts?
See, if Kovacic was fit, I'd go Kovacic, but we can't keep playing this guy for injury.
No,
so
we can't keep playing him.
I'd probably go. My gut is say Mason Mount in the
What have you made of Mount kind of this season? It's because it's been obviously it was a tricky start. And he went through that patch of Wolves, the 2 Milan games, the Villa game where he was very good, and then he's kind of reverted, not back to type, but reverted to that early season form where he was very ineffective against Brentford. And I thought he had quite a poor game against Man United as well. What have you made of Mount's season? Because I don't know, he's one that comes in for a lot of criticism. I've criticised him this season on various channels, various things that I've said, only because I've called what I've seen and I know what he can give us, and we've seen what he can give. But I don't know, there seems to be a bit of a lack of consistency in this game at the moment. Hasselbank's saying after the game on Saturday on Sky, saying that Mount doesn't create anywhere near enough chances for the forward players, and I would probably agree with that. I mean, where do you stand on Mason Mount at the moment?
It's so frustrating because you see, I always sort of bring up the Foden situation because look how Foden was integrated into Man City. He wasn't.
I think Foden's a lot more talented than Mason Mount.
For sure,
for sure.
As in terms of the situation of how they were integrated to the team, that's what I'm sort of looking at. In terms of Foden wasn't playing every single game for Man City when obviously they're David Silva and all those players, but the Centurions basically. But I think Mason Mount's just been overplayed. He's been overplayed since Lampard came. He's been played every single game, and I think is slightly catching up to him now in a way. Obviously, he's not getting injured, but you can see the drop off in intensity from him as well. It's just I just don't see the same Mason Mount because of the fact that we've over relied on him, overplayed him, and it's just it's a weird one. I do feel confident that he'll get back to sort of his best form, but I think Mount needs a consistent run of games to get back into that. He's no good sort of
he does start pretty much every game.
Yeah, which is why I have sort of a problem with it because you hear that saying that players that play this much at this age sort of burn out early, and I'm afraid Mason Mount could burn out really early with the amount of games he's playing, especially for England as well.
This is it.
I love Mount, but
I probably would pick him, and I think he does play there. For moving on from that,
he's so vital for us as well.
I've gone with Conor Gallagher on this side. I think Gallagher needs to play. We've seen Gallagher play that kind of not necessarily as a right winger, but that right side. I think he's done I think he did it very well against Wolves. I think he came on for Mason Mount at half time in the San Siro and essentially played that position. I would personally stick him there. I don't think Hakim Ziyech is going to play. He's not getting a look in under Potter. I wouldn't play Raheem Sterling, and I'd play Christian Pulisic on the left hand side. Would you? What were your thoughts on Conor Gallagher there? And what are your thoughts on Gallagher in general? I think I've said many times that Potter coming in is probably the best thing that could happen for Gallagher. And the fact that he's playing further up the pitch as well and he's shown what he can do, I think it's a big plus for Conor Gallagher. So I'd stick him on that right hand side. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to stay there. We could see this sort of thing happen where he switches to a diamond that. That could also switch to that. There's obviously options there, but I'd probably stick him to begin with. If this is a 4-3-3, I'd stick him on that right hand side. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Just my thoughts on Gallagher. Overall, I think he's done well. Obviously, he scored that screamer against Palace and stuff, but and he, I can't remember what game it was. I think it was a Champions League game.
He was phenomenal against Wolves at home as well.
Yeah, Wolves. It was Wolves.
Very good at Wolves at home. Yeah, Wolves, he was man of the match for me in that one.
Yeah, played really well against Wolves. He was in the front three positions, wasn't he, in that game? I think. Yeah, from what I remember. So Yeah, obviously he had that stomach bug against Brentford. That's come off
Yeah,
early and
came off
stuff,
after
but
15.
hopefully
Yeah,
he's
not
all right.
ideal. Well, didn't play at the weekend either, so
Yeah, he's
you'd
kind of
fully
fresh, isn't
expect
he?
him to
So
start. Yeah,
yeah, I see. It's annoying because I don't know if I'd sort of start him on the right. Maybe if I was to start him, maybe in Mount's position, but I feel like we have to start Mount in a way. So
yeah.
I'm inclined to start Gallagher. To be fair, I wouldn't mind Conor Gallagher. And let's be real, our right hand side is terrible to be honest in terms
Yeah,
of options. So yeah, but
let's
I
let's go
definitely give
that. I
Gallagher a
mean,
run. So
left hand side, if he can't start this game, I don't know when he's going to start. But for
yeah,
me, Raheem Sterling has to be dropped, benched, rotated, whatever you want to call it. Christian Pulisic deserves to have an opportunity. You know, he played against Wolves, did really well. Hasn't started a game since. I thought he had a good impact when he came off the bench against Brentford
he was phenomenal.
in midweek. He deserves an opportunity. Before we get into Pulisic, just briefly, thoughts on Raheem Sterling. He came in. We were excited by it. For a great record in the Premier League, one of England's best players for sure. His goal scoring records is exemplary. Only 3 players have scored 100 goals under Pep. Him, Aguero, Messi. Yeah, he's done it all. He knows this league inside out. He started well. He's had 6 goals and assists this so far this season. But the last month or so, his performance levels have really dipped, and we're getting nowhere near enough from him. And he's bordering on ineffective in the last 3 or 4 games. All right, the Villa game, I thought he was terrible, but he did play right wing back in the first half, and then second half he was moved further up, and I thought he was poor. I thought he was terrible against United. He was started on the bench against Brentford. Yeah, it's not been good for Sterling recently, and I think he just needs to be taken out the side and just regroup. I mean, what have you made of Sterling's season so far? Because he's started to come in for a bit of criticism now, and I think it's fair because he's just not producing the goods on the pitch.
Yeah, I think criticism is fair, but I think it goes to the point where people are saying that we shouldn't have signed Sterling. That's just ridiculous.
No, that's rubbish. That
I think if we look at all of our attackers, if we think about the form that they've hit or could hit, I think Sterling's definitely our best attacker. If you look like on in terms of everyone on form, I think Sterling's definitely the best. Like look at his output for City; it was ridiculous. Like he's definitely one of the most underrated, I think, wingers / like inside forwards the league's probably ever seen. To be honest, like I can't remember how many goals he's got in the Premier League, but it's definitely
over 100. He's
over 100.
Yeah.
Like we're complaining about, or we're criticizing a guy who's got over 100 goals in the Premier League. Like, obviously, criticism's fair. Like, he hasn't been good past couple of games, like past month, like you said, but you can't just give up on Raheem Sterling like that. He's such a good player.
What I would also say is, though, I think it's unfair, or I think it's unrealistic to expect us to get the same Raheem Sterling that was at Manchester City. Let's be clear. Sterling's faults are well known. He's not the best finisher, and he takes 4 chances to stick one away. Now, at City, where you're winning games most weeks and you get 5, 6, 7 chances a match, if you miss the first couple of chances, no one cares. If you stick the 3rd or 4th way, it doesn't matter. If you don't score at all, it doesn't matter because you've won the game anyway. Whereas at Chelsea, you might get a couple of opportunities in a game, and if you miss them both, that's highlighted far more because we probably won't create that many more chances, and that could be the difference between winning and not winning the game. So Sterling's flaws, I think, are more exposed at Chelsea because of the inferior quality that he's playing with compared to what he played with at Man City, and due to the amount of chances relative few chances we create in comparison to what City create. And so more chances generally equals more goals, more opportunities, more chances to stick it away. Numbers game, really, basic percentages. So I think he is struggling to have an impact at the moment. And it's going to take him time as well to settle into this Chelsea team. But what I would say is he kind of left City for a new challenge to be the main man. If you want to be the main man in this attack, and he has carried the attack for the majority of this season,
100%.
Games like Saturday, you have to step up. You can't turn in a performance like that. You just really can't. You just can't do it. So for me, he has to hold the bench for this game, and maybe even hold the bench for the Brighton game at the weekend as well. I think Pulisic deserves a run. I mean, just briefly before we round out the selection, what are your thoughts on Pulisic? Obviously, under Tuchel, things were toxic. The relationship was terrible. He seems a lot happier now. Potter's here. Still not getting as many opportunities as perhaps he deserves. I've not been his biggest fan. I've been critical of him. But I do think, credit where it's due, or fair is fair. Like, he should be getting a bit of a run in the side now for a few games, just to show what he can do.
Yeah, I think looking at sort of Tuchel's relationship with Pulisic and like sort of last season and stuff like. I think we'll have to remember as well, like he was so injury prone a couple of seasons ago,
Yeah.
and like for me, it was kind of like, okay, get through next season without any injuries at all. And I don't think someone in the chat might be able to remind, but I don't remember him getting injured at any point last season, even though he barely played
No,
like
it's
last season. But I
minimal.
don't remember him
Minimal,
getting injured.
probably,
So
compared to what it was like under Lampard. It was all the time almost.
so like in that sense, like that was kind of my first barrier of like, okay, hopefully he doesn't get an injury for the whole season. Then we might be able to see what he does the season after, which is obviously now. So, and I definitely want him to get more chances within the team because he showed what he can do. Like we saw the form he showed in lockdown. Like he was like honestly like
He's a good
breathtaking to
player.
watch.
He's a good player, but I think he's one of those that he needs a run of games, and he just needs to be trusted. He just needs to be trusted by the manager. I'm not saying that like Pulisic is the answer to all the problems, but he certainly deserves an opportunity to show what he can do, and he deserves to start a few games. You know, I thought against Wolves, he started, he did really well.
Yeah.
Hasn't started a game since. Like,
yes,
you know, how can you expect players to anyone, not just for Pulisic, but how can you expect players to kind of build any consistency or build any sort of level of performance when they start 1 week, they do well, and they don't see the pitch, they don't start a game again for the next 3 or 4. Like there's, you know, I know it's difficult. You've got to rotate the squad and stuff, and certain players will be expecting to play and whatnot, but you know, you've got to earn your right to play. And, you know, Pulisic, I think, has earned his right to be at least be given a shot of starting a couple of games. I think he should be starting both games this week. I think he should start tomorrow, and I think he should start Saturday as well. But, you know, it is what it is at the moment. But yeah, definitely go with Pulisic. And to round out the team, mate, for me, I'm picking Broja. Obviously, he got his first start against Brentford. He got his first goal against Wolves. He's still raw. There's ability there. But I think Aubameyang, for me, has been a little bit disappointing in the last couple of games. And I think Broja fully deserves to start. Young, hungry, bags of pace, will be looking to impress. I think that this is probably a perfect game for him. I mean, just briefly, mate, thoughts on Aubameyang, and then and your thoughts. Would you pick Broja tomorrow?
Yeah, just thoughts on Aubameyang generally. Like, I think he has tailed off a little bit the past couple of games, but I think that's more to the fact that we haven't given him the service. The service behind him has been absolutely poor for him, and he's only started getting into the game once we brought Kovacic on against United, and even still, like he, I think he just had 1 or 2 shots. That's it, to be honest. But Broja like looks so promising. Like that run against Ben Mee, like it was almost like that.
Mate, I didn't realize how rapid he was. I was at Brentford was at Brentford last week, and like. Oh, I couldn't believe how quick he was. I didn't realize he was that fast. He's rapid, and for a guy that's got a big frame, you know, he's a little bit like Diego Costa, not in terms of the pace. Obviously, he's got far more pace, but like sort of a shithouse bit, like kind of raw ability. I think he could be good, but again, you know, as a young player, if you're going to develop, you need to kind of get fairly regular minutes. And I don't mean starting every week, because he's not going to start every week for Chelsea right now, but I mean getting at least 20, 25 minutes off the bench if he's not starting, because that's kind of the only way for me that he's kind of going to improve. But just on Aubameyang, I think we know what he is. He's a poacher now. At this stage of his career, he's very much a penalty box striker. And you're not going to expect much in terms of build-up play or link-up from him at all. You just want him to be in the box, so when the chances are created, he's there to stick them away. And he has shown when he scored 3 games in a row that, you know, if he can put the chances away if they're created. It's just, can we create the chances for him enough and on a consistent basis? Because he has shown that he will stick them away when presented with the opportunities. And the games that he scored, the goals that he scored have very much been, those have been the only opportunities pretty much had in the whole game on those occasions. So if we create those chances, he can do it. But I just think, obviously, everything else he doesn't really offer much else. But that's what he's there for. He's just there to put the ball in the net. So we can give him the service to do that. Then he could be an important player for us. But it's not a long-term fix. And I don't know how influential he's really going to be this season.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Sorry, mate. What was that?
That's the tricky thing in terms of, you know, how much influence is he really going to have this season? Because I don't think we can create enough chances for him to score regularly. That's my worry.
Yeah, it's definitely worrying, the fact that we're not creating enough for him. But in terms of tomorrow, I think I'd start Broja, to be honest. And obviously, if the game goes well, take him off, bring on Aubameyang, and then try and get him a goal before Brighton, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was Aubameyang's got the best timing for striking. Doesn't do though. He's still a very good finisher, and his finishing ability is still there for sure. But yeah, it's just getting the chances for him. And I just even when you look at that, and I like the look of that team, but you think who's creating the chances in that team? Like, I mean, Pulisic, you'd say can create opportunities. Gallagher is all right. He's not the most creative, but you look at that team. Ruben doesn't really create anything. You certainly Jorginho's not going to get anything. I think you're asking for a lot from
Mason
those
Mount.
fullbacks. And Mount, who's you would say is a creative outlet, doesn't chip in with an awful lot. Well, certainly not recently. So yeah, creativity is a massive worry, whatever system we're playing.
Yeah,
that is always going to be the biggest issue. But I mean, I don't mind the look of that team. I think that team is good enough to win. And as you say, with options on the bench, the likes of Sterling, Aubameyang, you've got options, Kovacic to come off the bench if he starts on the bench. You know, we've got players that can change the game. Your Chipwell makers and things like that. So there's options on the bench. So this is a game that we really should be winning. I don't think there's really any excuses.
Watch out Havertz starts tomorrow. Just like
Havertz as well. I mean, to be fair, I personally wouldn't pick him, but if we're thinking about
I just know he's going to start tomorrow.
If we're thinking about what Graham Potter does, you're thinking, well, Kai Havertz didn't play at all against United.
Yeah, he's
probably going to start tomorrow. I would be more inclined. I think we could potentially see this tomorrow. If Havertz starts, I'll just say that Havertz is where Jorginho is.
Yeah,
I think we could see that. If Havertz were to start, I think we could see that. Or you could even see if it was Havertz, it could be Broja and Havertz in a 2, kind of twin strikers, and you maybe even have Pulisic in behind as a 10, and you could see something like that.
See, that'd be interesting because at least you can see what Havertz is like playing with another striker.
Well, people say that, like, you know, Havertz, he kind of operates best as a second striker or whatnot. I don't really know, but you could see all those things. But this is our team. This is what I'd personally go with. But there are several options there to obviously be assessed. Mate, one thing then to round out, what's your score prediction for tomorrow night? Are we going to seal qualification to the last 16, meaning that we can just play whoever we want in that Zagreb game, which is just before the Arsenal one? So I think it's of paramount importance that we just qualify for this game. We leave nothing to chance on the final day just because you could suffer the humiliation of going out and because you've got that massive game against Arsenal that weekend. You want to have most of your players rested.
Yeah, score prediction for tomorrow.
It's the early 2-0. 2-0. It's the early kickoff as well. Who do you think is going to get the goals?
Oh, well, I bet based on our lineup, I'm going to say Pulisic, and I'll go for Thiago Silva.
Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. Actually, no, I said 2-1 before when I was on another stream earlier. I'm going to say 2-1. I'm going to stick with my 2-1. I'm going to go for goals for Pulisic and Broja. But to be honest, as long as we win, as long as we qualify, that's the most important thing. But yeah, guys, that seems like a good point to round out the stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for getting involved in the chat with your thoughts and your comments. Before we round out, please make sure on your way out, guys, you smash the likes on the stream, get those likes up and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. Dharmesh, thanks so much for your time, bro. Always great. It's a pleasure, as always. I will be back tomorrow night after the game with Pice for some player ratings and match reactions. So make sure you join after the game for that. But until then, guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the game tomorrow and up the Chelsea.